So Games Workshop just unleashed an enormous amount of FAQs. Tons of Wargear has been updated. Space Marine supplements have had a lot of FAQs to their characters and rules, and there's entirely new indexes for Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Death Watch and Black Templars. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're just taking a bit of an overview of this enormous FAQ update. I think this might be one of the biggest FAQ drops that Games Workshop has ever done. There's an article on the Warhammer community webpage, and it's literally got an entire page of different links where you can click on the FAQ document for your faction or your Psychic Awakening book. In this video I'm going to go through the various different types of FAQ that they've issued, the main changes to Wargear that have been made and what hasn't been made, and then talk in overview about the changes to the Space Marine supplements and those indexes, and hopefully we'll have a bit more chance to go further in depth on them in future videos. So what is actually in this FAQ then? Firstly, and the biggest content that's dropped with this, are 5 Index Astartes downloads, which essentially allow you to run Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Death Watch, Dark Angels and Black Templars alongside the new Space Marine Codex. These ones look like stopgap, slightly reduced rules supplements just to allow the armies to be functional until their actual books are released. All the datasheets in every one of these codexes has been reprinted here. Some decent changes have been made to some of their core rules. All of the new datasheets take similar changes that the Codex Space Marine units have taken, though they have lost some of their unique warlord traits, relics and stratagems, which I believe will be coming back in their actual supplements. They've also had new points costs issued, which will supersede previous ones. Next, they've made significant FAQs to the other 6 Space Marine supplements, things like Ultramarines, White Scars and Iron Hands. They haven't reissued all the datasheets for this one and haven't changed any points costs, but they've just added FAQs to the existing units to change them slightly for how their auras and things work. Most of the unique units and things here were things like characters, relics and warlord traits, so they've often added things like aura tags, and this rule only affects chapter core units and characters. There are some rules changes in these, but it's not quite as drastic as those 5 Index Astartes downloads. Finally, almost every single other Codex and Psychic Awakening book has had a new FAQ or errata, which has mainly been used to update Wargear pieces. We'll go through the full list in a second, but it's new melter weapons, plasma weapons, flamer weapons, and a few of the other more generic Wargear pieces found in the update. I'm afraid they have mainly used this to update Imperial armies as opposed to Xenos and Chaos. For the most part, unless the actual weapon had the exact same name as one of the ones from the Imperial things, such as Eldar Power Swords, then it generally hasn't been updated. No FAQs whatsoever have been issued for Tyranids and Orcs, for example, even though they do have weapons that might have been analogues of Imperial Wargear. For example, Orc Burners and Scorchers remain exactly the same profile. It is a bit of a shame for the Xenos players. They're going to have to wait for their codexes to have these updated Wargear rules. I thought it would make most sense to cover the generic Wargear changes for most of the non-Space Marine codexes first, then move on to talk about the Space Marine supplement FAQs, and then go over the changes to the Index Astartes documents. Firstly, besides in the Index Astartes documents, all points remain unchanged, so even though a lot of Wargear has got better rules, you don't pay any more for it. I think they'd already attempted to account for this in the 9th edition points changes, such as heavy bolters and multi-melters being already a fair bit more expensive to take account from their decently boosted profiles. I've tried to list here all of the specific areas that they've updated, so let's go through one by one. Firstly, Power Fists are flat 2 damage, rather than the D3 that they used to be, and Chain Fists are AP-4 D3 damage, but if they attack a vehicle then they're a flat 3 damage, so they're very nice when you can get them. Both very solid options. I think Power Fists will generally do better against infantry, and Chain Fists against vehicles. The various flavours of Power Weapon have also been updated. Power Swords are +1 strength now, Axes +2 and Maws +3. Of those, I think that the Power Sword is usually going to be the strongest now. Lightning Claws now give you +1 attack per each claw that you have, so if you have 1 Lightning Claw then you get +1 attack, and if you have 2 then you get +2. That could make things like Lightning Claw Terminator Assault Squads decent. And finally, Astartes Chainswords get AP-1, which is applied to the Chaos Space Marines as well. Finally, Thunderhammers have been nerfed slightly, going to AP-2 and flat damage 3, so they've been reined in a bit. The Force versions of these weapons have generally been treated pretty similarly. So for example, a Force Power Sword is now strength +1 and D3 damage. Those slightly more arcane variants haven't been affected at all, such as say for example Grey Knight's Force weapons, Nemesis Demon Hammers remain exactly the same for example. Moving on to ranged weapons, and many other overheating weapons that would kill the bearer on the roll of a 1, now generally tend to happen on an unmodified one rather than one that you can modify. That means that your plasma doesn't blow up more easily when you have a -1 to hit, but it also means that you can't keep it safe when you have a +1 to hit either, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. Interestingly, the Tau ion weaponry, which has a similar rule, also got this effect, and to be honest I think that it was a sensible change. Melter weapons went to d6 plus 2 damage when they're within half hit range, though I'm very disappointed that they chose not to update the Eldar fusion weapons and Tau fusion weapons, which are essentially just the same thing. I know there's going to be Xenos players not happy about that. For me, I think that would have been a good one to include. The biggest winners are the multi-melters, who also got 2 shots as well, and I think it basically means that wherever you can take multi-melters, they tend to be very efficient choices now. Particularly Sister Battle Retributor squads are going to be really, really nasty. Anything with Flamer in the keyword now is 12-inch range, including hand flamers. Very useful for being able to deploy them from longer range out of deep strike. Though again they have kept it limited to just flamer weapons, they haven't updated things with similar names, such as the very similar profile Death Guard Plague Spewers, or Orc Burners or Scorchers. A few Xenos things did get updates, such as Eldar Flamers and Dragon's Breath Flamers, but not all that many. Other things include Heavy Bolters being damaged 2 now, and being worth taking again. Hunter Killer Missiles are strength 10, although remain AP-2 and D6 damage. Grey Knights got updates to their Icarus weapons, they're now just +1 to hit aircraft now and don't suffer -1 to hit against ground. Though they haven't updated all Icarus weapons like this, for example the AdMech Icarus Array is still working just the same. Storm Shields are now 4+ invuls and +1 to the armor save across the board, good for some things but less good for others. I think for most units it probably will be a very slight downgrade, though it affects some more than others, such as Astra Militarum Crusaders now, who basically just went from having a 3+ invul to a 4+ invul. Finally, whenever a relic weapon is quite clearly just an upgraded version of the standard piece of Wargear, they do seem to have upgraded its profile where possible. For example, Payback, the heavy bolter that Gunnery Sergeant Harker carries in the Imperial Guard, has become damaged 2 now, and the Claw of the Desert Tigers has become +1 strength as a power sword. Overall, it's an absolutely massive amount of changes to quite a lot of factions, though I do suspect that a lot of people will be disappointed that their own particular faction hasn't had all of its relevant pieces of Wargear updated right away. Honestly, I could see Games Workshop's predicament a bit, it being a bit difficult to know where to draw the line. There's all manner of bits of Wargear that would have some thematic tweaks, though honestly if I were them I would have updated the fusion weapons from Eldar and Tau, and any similar auto-hitting weapons that function like flamers to be 12-inch range as well. I think it's a bit of a shame for the armies that have those weapons that didn't get the update. In general, armies who had most of this gear will generally be profiting quite a bit. In particular, this update seems almost tailor-made for the Adeptus Auroritas. The Sisters of Battle just absolutely love their Melter, Bolter and Flamer weapons, and I think that the update's a significant power boost for the army. Moving on, we have the FAQs updating the Space Marine supplements. These are the ones like Ultramarines, White Scars and Raven Guard. Black Templars aren't included in this list as they got a full index update instead, and Grey Knights are in a bit of a weird unique situation. They got all their Wargear updated to match Codex Space Marines, but they didn't get any of their stat lines updated. It now means that weirdly Grey Knight strike squads are now some of the weediest Marines in all of 40k, only having 1 wound when everyone else gained 2. In any case, for these 6 supplements, Ultramarines, White Scars, Iron Hands, Raven Guard, Salamanders and Imperial Fists, they got any relevant bits of Wargear updated as per the other updates. Where possible, they seem to be trying to bring in any of the rules to be similar to Codex Space Marines. For example, Chapter Masters such as Marnius Calgar have been updated to work in the new way, where they only pick 1 unit rather than having a full 6-inch aura of 4 rerolls. So it's a bit of a nerf to Calgar and Shrike. And most auras and buff powers now often specify things like core units or core units and characters. There's honestly quite a lot of fine detail as to exactly who got what. Maybe we'll have a chance to cover that in the future. But the general trend is just to bring things in line with Codex Space Marines on the whole. Stratagems have been given categories which are relevant in Crusade, I believe, such as Epic Deed stratagems or Wargear stratagems, and Psychic powers have also been given their own categories as per the big rulebook in 40k, such as Witchfires and Blessings. Though there have been a few nerfs in this supplement book, there haven't been any points changes to any of the characters there, so despite being significantly less useful, Calgar is still 210 points. I'm not saying he's necessarily completely not worth it in an Ultramarines army, but he is quite significantly less useful than he was before due to his Chapter Master nerf. Finally, here's a brief overview of the really big updates, the Index Astartes supplements. These are essentially mini codexes, and they currently replace the previous codexes for now, so Codex Blood Angels and Codex Dark Angels are essentially no longer valid anymore. They've been replaced by these stopgap supplements before the new versions of their books come out in the very near future. The books consist of several sections, all the datasheets have been reprinted, There's a small section of reduced numbers of stratagems, and the army-specific special rules and new points costs. On the datasheets, Wargear has been updated just the same as any of the previous updates, and unlike the other armies, they have actually taken the time to redo some of the unique chapter pieces of Wargear. The changes to these armies certainly feel similar to Codex Space Marines, where lots of the datasheets have been just rethought, some things have been buffed and some things have been nerfed. Just as one example, the Blood Angels Flamestorm Cannon is now 18-inch range, and their Angelus Bolt Guns are now AP-1, both of which are just a little bit better and a bit more satisfying to represent the model. There's a ton of these changes across the indexes, and I'm hoping to get around to covering them in later videos. Possibly some of the biggest news from these indexes are the army special rules that have been redone. The Dark Angels chapter tactic Grim Resolve was redone in Codex Space Marines, but now they've also had extra rules added for Jink and Inner Circle. Jink will now always give your Raven Wing a 5+ invul save, and give them a 4+1 if they advance. Inner Circle for the Death Wing has been massively buffed. You have to roll 2d6 lower than your leadership if you want to fall back, which is a bit of a negative, but they still auto pass morale tests, and now they essentially have transhuman physiology active all the time, meaning that a wound roll of 1 to 3 always fails. Deathwing Knights just got crazily more survivable. Deathwatch special issue ammunition has also received an extensive rework. Dragonfire ignores cover, Hellfire gives +1 to wound if you're not firing at a vehicle, Kraken gives extra range and extra AP, and Vengeance rounds now give an extra pip of damage. All this seems very nice. It does appear that Deathwatch have lost the ability to use special issue ammunition on many of their different bolter variants though. Essentially it only is standard bolters and bolt pistols now, not storm bolters or bolt rifles. Black Rage has been nerfed somewhat. It still gives the excellent buffs that it did before, but you can't fall back and you can't perform actions. And Space Wolves have gained a special rule for their wolf units which allow them to advance and charge, called Swift Hunters. All of these are pretty radical changes, and again I think that each one deserves a fair bit more discussion. Blood Angels and Dark Angels have had a successor chapter section added, which I believe now allows you to use custom successor chapters with Blood Angels and Dark Angels being your primary army. So you could use things like Master Artisans and Stealthy on them now, though no such section exists for any of the others. Again, the stratagem lists are given their own unique categories, and they're drastically reduced compared with their unique options that they had before. Basically, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, and Space Wolves only have some of the stratagems from their Psychic Awakening content. They don't have any of their unique ones from their own codexes, and the Deathwatch don't have any unique stratagems whatsoever. Only the Black Templars are untouched, and I think that they retain the majority of theirs. I believe that that means that technically they aren't allowed to use any of their stratagems from their core codexes as it stands at the moment, and just have to make do with the standard Space Marine ones until they actually get their books. The same is unfortunately true out of the Warlord traits, relics, and psychic powers. Black Templars again do have their Warlord traits and relics from Faith and Fury, but the Warlord traits, relics, and psychic powers that were present in Codex Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, and Deathwatch are all gone. The only versions of those that they have now were any that were in the Psychic Awakening updates, such as say certain Blood Angels relics, such as the Biomantic Sarcophagus for their Dreadnoughts, and the Dark Angels did retain their Raven Wing and Deathwing Warlord traits. Again, it's pretty annoying to randomly lose a whole load of options for a short amount of time. I have no doubt they'll be back and reworked in the new codexes. I would bear in mind that all of these armies can now use the Warlord traits, relics, and powers from Codex Space Marines now, so they still have an absolute ton of options. It's just a lot of their flavour that's gone away until their supplements are re-released. Next we have the datasheets, plenty of old favourites returning, and also some new surprise ones. A lot of these have been reworked. Most unique infantry units have gained the core keyword. Standard Space Marines have all gained 2 wounds now, such as Blood Angels Death Company or Space Wolves Grey Hunters. Certainly a very nice buff. Blood Angels Death Company with jump packs are 25 points now, and are very scary with Black Rage and Astartes Chainswords at AP-1. Deathwatch Veterans are only 20 points, and looking very nice with those special issue bolt guns. Terminators all have 3 wounds, and Bikes have 3 wounds as well. Good news for Dark Angels with their Deathwing and Raven Wing. Much like the main codex, all Dreadnoughts have gained Duty Eternal, including the Blood Angels and Space Wolf unique variants. Beyond the Fell Hand is going to be an absolute pain to remove now. He's Toughness 8, has a 5+ Feel No Pain, and also has this new -1 damage. He's not going down without taking quite a lot of shots. Finally, Deathwatch have some new kill team options available, including some much anticipated use of different Primaris models. The standard kill team is now known as the Proteus kill team. It can contain the same models as before, but they don't give any unique special rules now. Otherwise there's a Fortis kill team, which allows you to mix Intercessors, Assault Intercessors, Outriders and Hellblasters. There's a Gravis orientated one with Heavy Intercessors, Aggressors, Inceptors and Eradicators. and there's a Phobos pattern one called a Spectrus kill team, which is infiltrators, incursors, reavers and eliminators. It might have some interesting implications. They can field eliminators in more than units of 3 and outriders in more than units of 3 as well. Deathwatch also gained a few other unique datasheets such as Codicea Nantoran, I believe the librarian from Kill Team Cassius, and an actual datasheet for the rest of Kill Team Cassius themselves. There are many other changes to the various other datasheets in all 5 of these books, honestly too many to even start going into here. I'll try and cover a few more of the juicy details in future videos. Finally, these new indexes all have a new points cost section, blissfully similar to the Codex Space Marine one, where you have the name of the unit and then the various bits of wargear under it that it can take, and you don't have to go hunting through multiple different tables. Some things have changed a bit. For example, I just had a thumb through the Blood Angels one. The Bile Predator is down a little bit in points cost, which is quite nice to see as it's been overcosted for ages, and the Librarian Dreadnought went up slightly, presumably taking into account that Duty Eternal change. It's going to be interesting to pick through the changes and see what sort of things have changed for the better or worse. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Sorry for such a brief overview. There's honestly just a ridiculous amount of data and changes to process here. If you spot any other interesting big changes to certain units, feel free to post them down in the comments below. It'll be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts and ideas. If you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to see a little bit more in depth on these in the future, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. We have regular 40k content coming out pretty much every day. And if you have been enjoying my videos, I'd just like to mention that the channel is supported by the Patreon page I have for it, which is how I can afford to make quite so many videos quite so regularly. If you are enjoying the videos as they come out, feel free to give some support on the Patreon page and help keep them coming. The link's down in the video description, and there are a few rewards, such as seeing videos early, voting on what sort of things come next, and also automatic entry into the channel's regular prize draw. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.